Don't let mosquitoes ruin your day. Fight the bite by removing standing water on your property. Standing water of any kind is a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Do your part and help reduce the mosquito population.
Visit hcfl.gov/fightthebite. morning. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to the February 24th, 2025 Land Use Hearing Officer hearing. My name is Susan Finch, and I'll be presiding as the hearing officer over today's cases. Let me start by introducing Ms. Colleen Marshall. She is with the Development Services Department, and she'll go over she'll introduce other members of today's presentation staff, as well as go over any changes to today's agenda. Ms. Marshall.
Good morning, Colleen Marshall, Development Services. To my left is Mary Dorman of the Hillsborough County County Attorney's Office. Carmen Mason of Development Services staff is joining us virtually today, and Alexis Myers of Planning Commission staff will be presenting virtually as well. During the course of the hearing, a number of other staff planners will be presenting their findings for various cases and will be introduced for each item. We have a few continuances and withdrawals today. And we have no changes to the published agenda. Item A1, Special Use 240828. The applicant is APC Towers 4 LLC. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the August 25th, 2025 Land Use Hearing Officer hearing. Item A2, Variance 241128. The applicant is Rolando Santiago. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the March 31st, 2025 Land Use Hearing Officer hearing. Item A3, Special Use 241238. The applicant is Todd Pressman. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the March 31st, 2025 Land Use Hearing Officer hearing. Item A4, Special Use 241335. The applicant is David Wright, TSP Companies Incorporated. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the March 31st, 2025 Land Use Hearing Officer hearing. Item A5, Variance 250257. The applicant is William Ryan Homes, Florida Incorporated. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the March 31st, 2025 Land Use Hearing Officer hearing. Item A6, Variance 250277. The applicant is Hoosh Gove, Northside Engineering Incorporated. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the March 31st, 2025 Land Use Hearing Officer hearing. Item A7, Variance 250307. The applicant is Bruce E. Duncan. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the March 31st, 2025 Land Use Hearing Officer hearing. That concludes our continuances and withdrawals.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, let me start by going over our hearing procedures for today's agenda. Our hearing today consists of agenda items that require a public hearing by a land use hearing officer. I'll conduct a hearing on each agenda item and will file a decision within 15 business days following today's hearing. Our hearing today is informal. I'll ask questions related to the scope of direct testimony. I may call and question witnesses as I deem appropriate, and I'll decide all questions of procedure. I'll take evidence, but will exclude evidence that is irrelevant, immaterial, or unduly repetitious. Evidence may be presented in form, and all testimony must be under oath. Hearsay evidence may be used to supplement or explain other evidence, but shall not be sufficient alone to support a finding by me unless it be admissible over objections in a civil action. Our order of presentation is as follows. First up, we have variances. Variances start with Development Services presenting their staff report and findings for a period of 5 minutes. Then we'll go to the applicant. The applicant has 15 minutes to present their case. And next, we'll turn to proponents, anyone who would like to speak in favor of an application. Total proponent presentation time, 15 minutes. The same is true when next we go to opponents, anyone who would like to speak against an application. everyone combined 15 minutes. We'll then go back to Development Services, who has 5 minutes to address any changes or comments based on today's testimony. And then finally, we go back to the applicant. The applicant has the last word with 5 minutes for rebuttal. You'll note that at the end of our agenda, we have special use cases. That presentation order is the same except for who starts. On special uses, the applicant starts and has their 15 minutes. And then next up, we'll go back to Development Services to hear their findings on the application. I don't think we'll have this issue, but I'll go over it just in case. For that 15-minute proponent-opponent testimony, when we get to that section, I will ask you to raise your hand if you want to speak either in favor or against an application. We have people participating in the room, and we also have people participating virtually. So we will get a count of how many people want to speak, and then we will divide that 15 minutes as equally as possible to give everyone a fair chance. When you are coming, if you're in the room or online, if you are going to speak, if you could start by giving us your name and address for the record. We are recording this hearing, and we want to make sure we have your information correct. If you're in the room, when you're finished, if you could see Jennifer, she's at the end of the dais with the clerk's office. Jennifer, raise your hand. There you go. She has a log, and if you could sign in on her log with both your name, your address, and also the case number to which you spoke to make sure we have that correct. Now let me turn to Ms. Dorman with the County Attorney's Office, and she will provide you the legal requirements for appealing a decision made by a land use hearing officer. Ms. Dorman.
Good morning, Mary Dorman from the County Attorney's Office. This land use hearing officer public hearing is for variance and special use requests. This is the time for interested parties to present evidence and testimony. Once the land use hearing officer has closed a case, the record of that case is also closed, and no new evidence regarding that case may be submitted thereafter. Any decision by the land use hearing officer may be appealed to the Land Use Appeals Board. Should a decision be appealed, the record evidence, including the testimony presented at this public hearing, shall be the only evidence that is subject to review by the Land Use Appeals Board. In reaching a final decision on petitions, the Land Use Appeals Board will only consider the decision of the Land Use Hearing Officer and the record evidence, including any evidence from this public hearing. If an appeal is filed, the Land Use Appeals Board hearing shall consist of oral argument by the party appealing the decision, county staff, and any interveners, each of whom may be represented by legal counsel. The following shall have standing to appeal a decision of the land use hearing officer or to intervene in appeal. 1, the applicant, or 2, anyone who appeared before the land use hearing officer, presented testimony or other evidence, and is adversely affected by the decision of the land use hearing officer. It is the role of the County Attorney's Office to ensure that no new evidence or testimony is allowed before the Land Use Appeals Board that was not presented to the Land Use Hearing Officer at today's hearing. The County Attorney will recommend that the Land Use Appeals Board disregard evidence or testimony that is outside the record made at today's public hearing. Any evidence presented to the Land Use Appeals Board that is outside the record created at today's hearing could jeopardize the legality of the Land Use Appeals Board decision, and the presenter of that evidence could hurt their own cause. The safest course of action, then, is for you to write down any comments you make today and repeat them to the Land Use Appeals Board.
Thank you, Ms. Dorman. I appreciate it. All right, as I mentioned, all testimony must be under oath. So if you plan to speak today, if you could please stand and raise your right hand, and I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. Then with that, Ms. Marshall, we're ready to call the first case.
On today's agenda, we have no vested rights, fee waivers, remands, or reconsideration requests with site development variance requests or sign variance requests, which brings us to Section H, variance request. Item H1, variance 250171. The applicant is Rosendo Fernandez Jr. The request is a variance to lot development standards, and I believe the applicant would like to request a continuance this morning.
Okay, so we'll go a little out of order because the applicant is going to request a continuance. Sir, can you please come to the podium, please? Okay. The Ms. Chappelle, you're back on. No problem. No problem. Good morning.
Good morning, Tania Chapela, Development Services. The applicant is requesting a variance to the required rear yard setback to allow for an addition to the existing home. The property is zone PD 830082, which requires a minimum 25-foot rear yard setback. The applicant is requesting a 3 feet setback reduction to allow a 22-foot rear yard. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much. The applicant, please.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Rosendo Fernandez, 6204 Turtle Creek Boulevard. So I'm applying for a reduction of the setbacks on the back. I'm doing an addition to my property on the back, so it's only a 3-foot setback. I'm encroaching into a setback. In the rear, there's a natural habitat from DOT. It's a buffer area, so there's nobody in the rear, so it should not affect anybody negatively.
All right, and I did review your case before.
Yes.
And I just want to confirm, so that property adjacent to the rear is owned by the Department of Transportation?
Correct.
All right.
Exactly.
And is there an easement or something that you use the phrase natural conservation area
Yes.
for that property? Is that your term, or is that what is recorded on the property?
It's a conservation easement kind of from DOT, but it's not it's DOT's property, obviously.
Okay, all right, that was my only question, thank
Yeah,
you.
okay.
Does that complete your presentation?
That completes my presentation.
Perfect, thank you. If you could please sign in with the clerk's office.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Absolutely. Is there anyone here or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to this request? No one. Ms. Marshall? Anything else?
Nothing further.
All right, sir, you have the last word if you'd like it, but you don't have to take it.
No, I already spoke.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. Then with that, we'll close variance 25-0171 and go to the next case.
Next item is item H2, variance 250242. The applicant is Crystal Schaefer and Justin Voles. The request is a variance to accessory structure standards. Staff findings will be provided by James Baker.
Good morning.
Good morning, James Baker, Development Services. The applicant is requesting a variance to 6.11.04 Charlie 1 and 6.0101, which says that accessory structures shall not be erected in any required front yard. Accessory structures shall be permitted in front yards at twice the depth of the required front yard or 50 feet, whichever is less. A minimum setback of 50 feet is required in the AS1 district. They're requesting a variance of 44 feet to allow them to have a 6-foot front yard setback for an accessory structure. The issue is that the property is a flag lot shaped like a flag with a long, narrow strip of land extending from the street to a rectangular main section. The applicant is requesting a variance to this front yard setback to build a storage shed for the property located at 4120 Swindell Road in Plant City, Florida.
Thank you, appreciate it. Is the applicant here? Oh, I understand the applicant is virtual.
Yes, we're here.
Good morning. If you could give us your name and address to start, please.
Justin Vowles, 4120 Swindell Road, Plant City, Florida, 33565.
All right, thank you. If you want to go ahead with the reason for the variance request.
The house was built over 40 years ago, and the original owner built the house so it faces north, and Swindell is actually south of us. So the property actually faces to the north where the 260 acres are of the woodlands and the wetlands up there. That's the lowest point of the property is out that way. So we wanted to build our building, which is actually behind our house, which would be like a storage area or a garage.
Okay, and I think you just said this, but let me just verify it for the record. So your house faces north, and the logical question with this is why can't you put the shed in the northern part of the property? But did you just testify that there are wetlands there?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the lowest point of the property. We still have water on our property from, luckily, the last 2 hurricanes. Yeah.
All right, and I did see you have a letter of support from that neighbor to the south.
Correct.
All right, anybody
Both
else?
of
Did you talk to any of the other neighbors?
Just to the one to the side of us, none of them really seem to matter. Of course, we had the variance sign up, and we sent letters to everyone as well. So,
And you didn't hear any objections?
0.
Okay. All right. Did you have anything else before I move on?
I just wanted to swear myself in so I could talk. Hi, Crystal Schaefer. I own 4120 Swindell Road. So the property, and I don't know if you'll actually see photos of it in the evidence, but we don't have any rear door, doors where they're saying who the front of the home is. We actually have all of our front doors, facing what they're saying is the rear of our house. So, I mean, if you were just even just visually look at the home, it's very clear that we're just trying to build a garage in the back, in what is actually the back. And we didn't know we were going to have to participate in any kind of variance. We just, we hired a builder, they started building it, and the permit got kicked back. And this is all news to us that our house is apparently facing the wrong direction. So it was just a simple garage, and it's turned into, a big thing. So, but again, the way our property is situated, we back up to about, I believe it's 250 acres of wetland. So we don't have really any neighbors, and anyone who would be affected by it, which are only 2 people, we spoke to both of them, and they both signed letters that are in the packet. So.
Okay, I understand, and I have reviewed it. I have seen your graphic that
Thank you.
explains what you're talking about, so I appreciate that. All right, so we'll move on and go to ask for anyone who would like to speak in support. Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition? All right, Ms. Marshall, anything else?
Nothing further. Thank
All
you.
right. The applicant has the last word if you'd like it, but you don't have to take it.
I just want to thank James and Carmen and Lori. They've been very helpful for the last 2.5 months, helping us get our packet together. So hats off to you guys. I appreciate everything you've done for us.
All right, thank you for saying that. They certainly deserve it. So with that, we will close variance 25-0242 and go to the next case.
Next item is item H3, variance 250273. The applicant is William Ryan Homes, Florida Incorporated. The request is a variance to lot development standards. Staff findings will be provided by Jared Fullen.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning, Jared Fallon with Development Services. So this application is a request for a variance for a required rear yard setback to allow for the construction of a proposed townhome villa. The normal setback requirement for the rear yard in this zoning district is 20 feet. They were asking for a variance of 1 foot, which will result in 19 feet of a rear yard setback. In the second page of the application, there's the site plan. You can see that the variation is located in the southwest of the property.
All right, I do see that.
Yes.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, it does.
Thank you so much. Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Finch. Todd Amidon, Landmark Engineering, 8515 Palm River Road in Tampa. Pretty simple request. I will not reiterate all the variance criteria, just a couple architectural things. This is a paired villa product. The nasty word is duplex, and it's a platted project. So that center lot line has to be on that within 4 inches within that 8-inch block in the middle of it. This was a flagship product for this builder. He was developing it as we were going through design and permitting. They added a lanai architecturally to the footprint at the end and resulted in actually 2 errors. We have one application that was continued to next month and an internal side setback. So the plat's recorded. We're asking for a 1-foot setback. It's the corner of the house that is the lanai that they added. And the only architectural point I will make to you is if this was a patio or a concrete stoop with a different roof or different architecture, we wouldn't be here. That would be an accessory structure. But because they added it's a true lanai under the principal structure roof, then the principal structure setback applies. The adjacent property is a golf course. I don't think that's in the spirit of the setback. Doesn't have a negative effect on them. And then the total area of the encroachment is 1.3 square feet. So I'm here for any questions you have.
No questions. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank
If you could please sign in. All right. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one. Anyone in opposition? All right, Ms. Marshall?
Nothing further, thank you.
Mr. Amidon, you have the last word. All right, thank you. Then with that, we'll close variance 25-0273 and go to the next case.
Next item is item H4, variance 250352. The applicant is Modern House and Building Movers Incorporated. The request is a variance to lot development standards. Staff findings will be presented by Michelle Montalbano.
Good morning.
Good morning, Michelle Montalbano, Development Services. This variance, the applicant is requesting a variance to accommodate a proposed stairway which partially intrudes the required front yard. Due to significant hurricane damages, the first floor of the home is being lifted 19 feet above sea level or 7 feet above the base flood elevation to mitigate future flooding risk. Homes in the special flood hazard area use their base flood elevation as the baseline allowance for any projection to the front yard. The base flood elevation for this property is 12 feet. Per the LDC definition of yard, any structure less than 3 feet in height is not regulated and can be placed anywhere in the required front yard. Therefore, the requested variance is to LDC section 60103I2, which states architectural features such as stairways may project not more than 3 feet into the required front yard. Per LDC section 60101, the front setback in the RSC6 district is 25 feet. Therefore, a 22-foot front setback is required for the proposed stairway. The variance requested is 6.7 feet, which will result in a 15.3 front yard setback for a stairway 15 feet in height or greater. That concludes my report. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Alonzo Milan. I live right now reside at 12011 44th Street North in Clearwater. I am a PM in charge of this project. We are looking to do a flood mitigation project for Mr. Caruso. As the report says, the minimal front setback is 25 feet. We are allowed to go BFE +3 to a total elevation of 15 NAVD. Our proposed final elevation is 19 feet, which, by the way, we've designed the project to fit within the constraints of the neighborhood, has put us 6.7 feet above what we're allowed. However, with doing that, we are still 9.4 feet away from the sidewalk. The house was originally purchased by Mr. Caruso in 2003, originally built in roughly 1960s. So the intent was never that when purchased, I'm going to have to raise my home within 10 years. Due to Helene and Milton, the damage that Florida has incurred has been greatly noticeable now. So in order to prevent that from happening, what we come up is to raise the home to 12 foot above existing grade so that we can provide and maximize the use of the space underneath, even though it's for flowable space for storage and parking only. At the time, the reason for us going higher than the minimum elevation requirement is that we do not know the construction of the house, as we didn't start from scratch. Typical construction that we've seen throughout Florida is roughly a 3-foot grade beam. And counting that plus the elevation that it is, it would drastically reduce the clearance for Mr. Caruso having to be parking underneath. Other than that, we feel the design of our front stairs fit within the architectural of the neighborhood. And we don't want to cause any adverse effect to the property value of his property or surrounding properties as well. Thank you.
Okay. I just had a quick question just based on what you said. I reviewed your file and see your rendering of what the final product will look like. And so one of my questions was what happens to the garage, but you're saying the house will be lifted up onto pylons and then he will park underneath?
Correct.
I see. And so that's a 12-foot, it's not a 12-foot stem wall that comes up and supports the property? Not a stem wall, but the pylons that support. It'll be lifted 12 feet.
Correct. So we use 8x8 segmented concrete push piles. Once we reach refusal, Then we pour our foundation, and then we build our 16 by 16 columns. That will support the actual structure. What you see built around that CMU perimeter wall, that enclosure is to, it doesn't have to be there, but it is for safety reasons. The inner partition wall on the right garage door is made as well for safety, so that in the event of him having to evacuate, he can lock all belongings that are downstairs without having to worry.
Just my own curiosity, did the house flood?
Yes.
It did, okay. And so this encroachment into the front yard is only necessary because the house flooded and therefore you're lifting it and you have to have access to it, obviously.
Correct.
So, all right, I understand. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. If you could please sign in with the clerk's office. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Yes, sir, good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
I'm Chris Caruso. I'm the homeowner. So I'd like to speak in support. Yeah, so we were flooded, and this is, I think this is occurring with several others in our neighborhood. Not a lot of options for mitigation, elevation, or knocking down and building anew. So this has been a great option for a lot of us because from affordability perspective, it changes some things relative to building new. And we don't have to be out of our home for as long. So, but the only way to get up to that level would be to have stairs to enter in. And while we have the existing footprint, we can't really change that in order to accommodate the setback. So the elevation to the extra, I guess it's 4 feet, would be monumental in allowing us to get back to where we need to get. So
Understand. Thank you so much for coming down. I appreciate it. If you could please sign in as well. All right, we'll call for anyone else that would like to speak in support, either in the room or online. Seeing no one else. Anyone in opposition to this request? No one. All right, Ms. Marshall, anything else?
Nothing further.
The applicant has the last word, if you'd like it. Anything else before we close? All right, thank you so much. Then with that, we'll close variance 25-0352 and go to the next case.
This brings us to section I, special uses. Item I1, special use 250107. The applicant is PRP Wine International Incorporated. The request is a special use 3PS alcoholic beverage permit with separation waivers. Carol Ann Peddle will provide staff findings after presentation by the applicant.
All right, special uses, the applicant goes first. Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Dubbins. I live at 168 Forest View Court, Aurora, Illinois. I'm here to speak on behalf of PRP Wine. PRP Wine is a wine retailer that does wine education for people in their homes, and then if they're interested in the wine, they purchase it from our retail location. So we use the 3-tier system. A lot of our wine tastings are charity fundraisers, so we help the community that way, and we employ about 20 people in the Tampa area. We're requesting a waiver exemption because there are more than 7 existing licenses within 1,000 feet of our new location, where the fairground has 5 of those licenses. And we'd also like to share this is an off-premise license.
All right, thank you so much. I don't have any questions. Appreciate it.
Okay.
If you could please sign in with the
Thank you.
clerk's office. Development Services. Good morning.
Good morning. Carol Ann Peddle, Development Services. Again, this is special use alcoholic beverage 250107. Again, the applicant is PRP Wine International is requesting a 3PS special use alcoholic beverage permit to allow for the sales of beer, wine, and liquor to be sold in sealed containers only for consumption off premises. Distance separation waiver is sought for the proposed warehouse and distribution center, as the proposed wet zone area is within 1,000 feet of more than 3 alcohol beverage uses approved. Per code section 61111D5C, there shall be no more than 3 approved 3PS, 2 COP, 2 COPX, 4 COP, 4 COPX, 4 COPSX, 4 COPSBX, and then 11C or alcohol or bottle club alcohol beverage uses within 1,000 feet of the proposed alcohol beverage use, as measured from the proposed structure to the existing approved alcohol beverage uses. The proposed wet zone area is located on the east side of U.S. Highway 301, north of East Martin Luther King Boulevard. There are 7 approved alcohol beverage permits within 1,000 feet of the proposed wet zone area. The subject property is separated from 5 of those alcohol beverage permits on the fairgrounds property by U.S. Highway 301, a 4-lane highway, at the distance separation of approximately 970 feet. Since the fairground property has 5 alcohol beverage permits rather than 1 for the entire property, the addition of the 3 PS requests triggered the need for the waiver. Additionally, the approved alcohol beverage permit located at 4321 North 301 Highway is no longer in use, as the property is currently developed with the United Rentals Equipment rental business. For this reason discussed above, staff finds the proposed wet zone does not propose significant impact on the surrounding land use and negates the specified distance requirement. Therefore, staff finds the request approval.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? No one. Anyone in opposition to this request?
Ms. Finch.
Hello, good morning. Are you in support or in opposition?
In support. Yes, in support.
Okay.
In support.
You can give us your name and address to start.
If I can go ahead and. Yes, Danny Edwards, 2142 Debbie Shire Drive, Marietta, Georgia, 30064. I am outside counsel with PRP Wine, and I'm in support of. And so I too wanted to take just a quick second to thank Colleen, Carol-Ann, and Carmen for their help over the last couple of months to get us this application in front of you all. So thank you.
All right, thank you for those comments. I appreciate it. Anyone else in support? Just to make sure we get everybody. All right, seeing no one and no one in opposition, as I understand it. No. All right, Ms. Marshall, anything else?
Nothing further.
All right, sir, you have the last word. All right, thank you. Then with that, we'll close special use AB 25-0107 and go to the next case.
Next item is item I2, special use 250305. The applicant is CCRC Freedom Fairways Golf Course LLC. The request is a special use 11C Golf Club alcoholic beverage permit with separation waivers. Chris Granlenard will provide staff findings after presentation by the applicant.
All right. Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Grace Yang. I am with the Gray Robinson Law Firm at 101 East Kennedy Boulevard, Suite 4000, Tampa, Florida 33602. It's my pleasure to be counsel and authorized agent for the applicant this morning. I want to thank county staff, especially Chris Granlenard, for his help with this application. This is a request for a 11C golf course special use alcohol beverage permit. There is currently an 11C club, nonprofit social club license. And when our client, the current applicant, did its due diligence after acquiring the property, we decided and concluded that an 11C golf club special use was more appropriate for the property instead of the 11C general club use that's currently in place. This is an established golf course called the Freedom Fairways Golf Course, located in the Freedom Plaza community in Sun City Center. The Freedom Plaza community is a master planned retirement community, and so the golf course is an amenity for the residents living in the community. And we would like to have approval to have the 11C golf course designation approved for the community. It meets all the requirements for the golf course designation. There's an existing clubhouse. It's an 18-hole golf course. And we'd like the flexibility to allow beer, wine, liquor, primarily at the clubhouse, but to have the ability for the golf carts to drive around and have consumption on the course as well. We do require a distance waiver because we are within 150 feet of residential. Again, this is a master planned community. It includes residential nearby, but there is a a lot of buffering with the golf course that's existing there. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Just one, just for the record, to establish that it's an existing community. There's no new clubhouse plans or anything. A change in ownership triggered this application?
That is correct.
Okay, that was it. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. If you could please sign in. Development Services. Good morning.
Good morning. Chris Groundlenar, Development Services. The proposed 11C alcoholic beverage wet zoning is set for a chartered golf club located on a golf course called Freedom Fairways Golf Course. The wet zoning is for the golf course area of 278.867 acres. The distance separation waiver requested to be 150 feet, which would result in a separation of 0 to all residential surrounding the golf course. The establishment has an 11C alcoholic beverage permit approved in 2011, which permits beer, wine, and liquor for sale and consumption on the permitted premises to club members and their guests only. The applicant wants to expand the 11C alcoholic beverage permit to the entire golf course, which would include indoor structures and outdoor course areas. The Freedom Fairways Golf Course has existed at this location since approximately 1993. The expansion of the 11C AB permit to the entire course would not pose any additional impacts to the community. The residents live there primarily because of the community amenities. The golf course is part of that. The large area of the 278 acres with the wet zone, wetland areas and ponds would provide ample buffer area to the residential zone parcels. Staff finds the proposed 11C alcoholic beverage permit to be approvable, subject to 2 conditions. Upon approval, the existing 11C wet zoning shall be rescinded and replaced with this one, and the alcoholic beverage sale and consumption shall be limited to areas outside of the wetland conservation area. I'm available for any questions you might have.
Just to point out one small typo on the front page where it notes the distance to, the standard for the distance to residentially zoned property as 250 feet, but it's 150 in this case. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, sorry, apologize.
I just, for the record, just want to point it out to make sure we get the standard correct.
Yeah, it's a typo.
Okay, all right, that was it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one. Anyone in opposition? All right, Ms. Marshall?
Nothing
Anything
further,
else, Ms.
thank you.
Yang? Anything else before we close? All right, thank you. Then with that, we'll close Special Use AB 25-0305 and go to the next case.
The next item is item I3, Special Use 250217. The applicant is Crown Castle, USA. The request is a special use for wireless communication facility and variance to buffer and screening requirements. Orlando Boris will provide staff findings after presentation by the applicant.
Good morning.
Good morning. If I could just hold my time for just one housekeeping matter. Jamie
Sure.
Mayer of the law firm Hillward Henderson representing the applicant. I have been sworn. I did submit revised conditions of approval that I discussed with staff in advance, just correcting one scrivener's error in condition 6, as well as adding a condition that we will provide a 6-foot PVC fence around the tower compound instead of the chain link fence that's shown on the site plan. And
All
those will
right.
be submitted into the record in your binder
Okay,
as well.
so they're typed up in the
Correct,
record.
yes. There's
All
a red line in there, yes.
Okay, I'll review them.
very
Thank you.
much.
Appreciate it.
So big picture, this is a site to replace a tower that has been serving the coverage area in this community for over 20 years. And this is a better site than the existing site, and it's also a better structure, and you'll see why throughout this application. We are proposing a 160-foot wireless communication facility. It's a monopole-style tower on a CN-zoned site along Sheldon Road. The existing principal use is an American Legion post. We call them the landlord in the context of these tower applications, so they'll still be there, but they are the principal use. One thing that this tower does that the existing tower does not is be located over 100% of its height from the nearest residential structure. We are requesting 2 waivers and a landscape variance in connection with this application. One of those waivers is because it's not 100% of its height from the nearest residential boundary line, But again, it is 100% of its height from the residential structure on that lot. And again, the other waivers, we're proposing a monopole instead of the monopine camouflage tower that would normally be required, as you'll see in the staff report, and as well as the evidence in this presentation. A monopole is much more in line with the very commercial nature of this side of Sheldon than a pine tree would be. For context, the existing tower is to the left. It is a 288-foot lattice tower. It's been there for several decades. These neighborhoods grew up around it. The proposed tower site is on the left, and again, what we're proposing is a 160-foot monopole tower. Advancements in technology have allowed it to be shorter and slimmer now, as opposed to the lattice that went up 20 years ago. Just to be clear, there will not be these two towers at the same time. They'll overlap when the one is being decommissioned to turn the other one on, but what this does is the antenna that are on that existing tower that serve this area have to be relocated to this nearby site to continue serving this area in the event that that one is decommissioned. So this is not a proliferation of towers in an area where they're in such close proximity, but rather this does happen sometimes when a tower has to be relocated and continue providing service that's been provided for over 20 years.
So that existing tower will remain?
It would be, so the existing tower would be deconstructed. It would not be there.
And then anyone who's co-located on it comes to
They go, exactly,
the new
yes,
tower.
that's exactly correct. So really the antenna are what are being relocated. I'm calling it a relocation site. The relocation aspect is those antenna going to a new structure, which again is shorter now because technology is just better than it was 20 years ago. This is a view of the site plan as well as the subject site. The tower goes in the center of the compound in this little pocket of the site where it can go feasibly. The adjacent zoning is CG on the south, CN on the north and west, where on this side of Sheldon Road, which is a divided 4-lane county road, and AS1 on the east. The proposed setbacks are all in line with the CN district zoning setbacks, which is what's required on 3 sides. On the east, which is AS1, it would be required to be 160 feet because that's 100% of the tower height. That is one of the waivers that we're requesting, but it is 180 feet to the nearest structure that's actually on that lot.
Let me stop you just, that is
Sure.
one of my main questions. It appears from the staff report and from what you just said that the only request to that buffering and screening is on the east side.
Correct.
So the other 3 sides will comply with the requirement?
Well, and they would not require, the code does not require them to
because
have
of the
that.
residential. Okay.
Right, but there will be a 6-foot PVC fence around the whole thing, like a type A screening basically. So a portion of what would be required on the east, it'll be done all the way around the compound.
Understood, thank
But
you.
yes, on the east is where that, and I'll get to the variance towards the end, that's where the 20-foot type B buffer would normally be required. This location allows for continuity of coverage. The need exists, which is clearly demonstrated by the fact that there is a tower that exists here. In a review by the RF engineers associated with the applicant's team, as well as the county's third-party consultant, there is no other existing tower structure in a reasonable radius to co-locate those antennae upon. The closest feasible contender reviewed by the county's third-party consultant in particular was this American Tower site, which I believe is on the Big Cat Rescue property to the east. Its coverage is in red, the existing tower's coverage is in blue, and the overlap is purple, and it's simply not the footprint that would provide continued coverage. Contrast that with the existing tower in blue again, but the proposed relocation tower in red, and you can see this footprint shows why it's very important to have this tower as close as possible to the area that has been providing coverage in with the existing tower. With respect to the waiver to camouflage requirement, I'll show you a few pictures in a moment. The monopole design is more aligned with what would be expected on a very commercial segment of Sheldon. There is not a tree line surrounding the site that would allow it to integrate if it were the camouflage pine tree. And it cannot be a flagpole or those other kind of slim stick towers because they don't have the structural capacity to house or to have rather the antenna array that modern technology requires. The monopole tower is visually aligned with, there's a billboard across the street, there's a plethora of power poles, power lines. I'll show you a few pictures in a moment. It's a very commercial strip here up and down Sheldon. And again, it's a 4-lane major county road. These are a few towers. Again, some of these are in that radius that was reviewed to show you there are less camouflage towers than there are camouflage towers in the surrounding area, including one further up on Sheldon near the mall, as you can see, is visible across the street from residential properties. The tower identified as number 7 here, that is the existing tower. You can see it is surrounded by residential on all sides, and it is definitely not 100% of its height from dozens of structures. This is in context of the subject site. Looking across the street from the site, you can see the existing tower. So this is to demonstrate that a tower in the skyline of this area is not a new characteristic. And just some more views throughout this neighborhood. This existing tower is very tall and very apparent. This is a view of the site. So you can see the American Legion post there. The monopole tower will go behind that white fence that already exists on the site, and then it'll have its own white fence around it. Some of the power poles I was talking about. There's auto repair uses, a car wash, gas station. There's the billboard I mentioned just across Meadowview to the north. Commercial, strip commercial and standalone retail, and so on up and down Sheldon in this area. So as I mentioned, we do request a buffering and screening variance to the east. We are providing that type A screen in the form of a 6-foot PVC fence, so it is a partial screening, if you will, but the location, as you saw in the site plan of the compound, is right up against this shed that belongs to the landlord. It's located in a pocket with multiple competing structures and existing improvements that belong to the site. However, those very same elements do provide screening. They are a form of screening and buffering because they break up the line of sight from the adjacent residential. And so we find that the intent is met, that it is buffered from the existing use and will have a fence around it as well. And again, the buffering and screening is for the compound. Obviously, it's not for the tower itself. Certainly no one would say that you wouldn't be able to see that. So I'll just briefly run through the variance criteria because I know I'm a little long on time and I apologize. This is the only undeveloped portion where this can go on an otherwise very much developed site in a commercial area, so you're going to face this issue no matter where you go in a commercial corridor. These towers have to take these developed sites as they find them. They don't have the luxury always of landing on a vacant piece of property, being able to put the tower smack dab in the middle of it, for example. As I mentioned, the existing conditions and the proposed PVC fence do adequately screen the tower base. And this allows for a tower in an area where a need for coverage is demonstrated by the fact that it already exists. Without this existing tower or the relocation tower, there would be a gap. And this is a better site from a zoning perspective than one in the middle of a bunch of neighborhoods. This request is not a result of the applicant's actions. They take the site as they find them. As I said, they're putting it in the area where it can go to be the least disruptive to the subject site on an appropriate commercial site to relocate that coverage and maintain it. I have to note the Federal Telecommunications Act provides, and we do have a letter in the record from an RF engineer at T-Mobile, the FCC standards for health and safety will be met. They have to be met by this tower. In light of that, RF emissions cannot be considered in the subject of a zoning application. Planning Commission and Development Services staff find this consistent and recommend its approval. I personally, as the applicant's team, did receive calls from a neighbor to the northeast on Meadowview, about maybe 400 feet away, and from the West Chase Community Association. They had no objection after they learned that it was a relocation site. I do understand that there are concerns from neighbors to the west in that neighborhood, part of the neighborhood where the existing tower is, and that's why I think it's so important to clarify that this is a relocation tower. This is not a proliferation of towers. This is not going to be 2 towers sandwiching this community together. This is a better site from a zoning perspective on a shorter, slimmer tower, and with that, we respectfully request your approval. I'm here for any questions, and we also have an RF engineer online.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. You answered my question about the buffering and screening waiver request, so I got that. Approximately how far away are these 2 towers from each other?
About 2,300 feet.
Okay. All right. 100 feet apart. Okay. Just clarify one thing you said to me about the request to not camouflage. was it your testimony that, I understand the tree, I get that, but the other possibilities in terms of a flagpole or a cross or something like that, is co-location difficult under that circumstance?
So I would defer to our RF engineer who can explain, you know, these antennae are much larger than they used to be. So although technology, they don't have to be as tall, they're large and heavy. So when you have these slim stick towers, basically the antenna is enclosed within that, they call it a shroud. You can't have these, I mean, I would say these antennae are probably, if you saw them on the ground, you know, very wide. So yeah, it's not a feasible way of camouflaging these modern towers, but we do have an RF engineer, as you know, my testimony is not expert testimony, so I would prefer to defer that to him to just confirm that that's the case.
All right, without getting into too much detail, I'll take that testimony.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Michael, are you able to?
Yes, I'm here. And for the record, name is Mike Herco. Address is 2000 Corporate Drive, Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, 15317. And just for clarification, I guess is the question, as far as the RF design, we're going from a site with single antenna to sectorized with multiple antennas, and how that improves the RF signal. Is that correct? Being asked?
The question is, so in terms of camouflage towers, why those slim stick towers are usually not feasible for the full antenna, like multiple antenna array and co-location. So for example, it's, you know, monopine allows you to put the antenna on the outside. Can you explain from, you know, an engineering perspective why a church, what do they call it, a cross version or a flagpole wouldn't be feasible?
Yeah, typically on those, you're limited with the number of antennas that you can put in a sector, and a sector is just basically the direction that the antennas would be pointing. A lot of those would require a single antenna, which would not allow you to, a lot of the carriers now would put 2-3 antennas to give you some of the spatial diversity. A quick example that I could give is if you have 2 antennas pointing in one direction, it improves the RF quality and signal, because it's almost like when you have 2 eyes. The antennas can, quote, see better and have higher quality and clarity with the multiple antennas in a single sector, as opposed to just a single antenna in the sector.
All right, thank you. That answers it. Did you have anything else before we move on?
I do not, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. If remember to sign in, please. All right, Development Services. Good morning.
Good morning. This is Orlando with Development Services. I believe that the applicant already has explained the project, so I'll be very brief with my notes. Just want to mention that the zoning district is going to be, as the applicant mentioned already, CN, and the site acreage is going to be approximately 1.15 acres. Yes, it's going to be special use for a cell tower. It's going to be 160 feet tall, and the applicant is requesting 2 waivers. The first one, it's going to be for the tower height setback, as was mentioned already, and the second one was going to be for the camouflage. In addition to that, the applicant will be, it's requesting, a variance for the buffering in the area. Think again, everything has been very well covered by the applicant, but if you have any questions, more than happy to answer them.
No further questions. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll go to the Planning Commission.
Alexis Myers, Planning Commission staff. The subject site is located in the residential 4 future land use category. It is located in the urban service area and within the limits of the Northwest Hillsborough Community Plan. The proposed special use meets the intent of future land use element policy 1.4 on compatibility and objective 16 on neighborhood protection. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed special use consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the proposed conditions by the Development Services Department.
All right, thank you, Ms. Myers. I appreciate it. It will call for anyone who would like to speak in support. Anyone in favor, either in the room or online? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition? How many people would like to speak? 2, 3. Okay, let me confirm. We have no one online. Is that correct?
We have Peter, but he is part of the application team.
A part of the application. Okay, so we have 3 people in opposition, so Jennifer will do 5 minutes apiece. Whoever would like to come forward, go ahead and give us your name and address, please. Good morning.
Good morning. Mark Herman, 8834 Royal Enclave Boulevard, Tampa 33626. I'm a 19-year resident of the Enclave at Citrus Park, which has been DBA'd to the Royal Enclave at West Chase, directly across the street, visible to most of these photos. Where this, I have something prepared, but I just would like to point out a few things. Where this pole is slated to be built is less than 200 feet from a community of 400 residents directly across the street that will be affected negatively. How so? You're talking about camouflaging a 160-foot tower. How do you do that? I don't know. So the pre-existing tower that was there prior to us was there before our community, 19, 20 years ago. I understand the need for this tower, but the placement of this tower, there's so many better spots. We have a dump that's less than a mile from there. You have further vacant land closer to the SR Veterans 589 that will not affect this. In addition, there's maybe 6 other communities within a mile of this tower that will be directly affected. To my speech here. So I stand before you to express the community's strong opposition to the proposed cell phone tower slated to be built directly outside of our neighborhood. Our community of 400 residents, 100 children, are in strong opposition to this. The proposed tower location is alarming, as it would not only affect us, but the surrounding communities of in excess of 2,000 residents. Our neighborhood is a place where families thrive, children play, and safety and well-being are of utmost importance. This is not a commercial area. You have commercial zones across the street that are, they border Sheldon, and that is it. The rest, this is a residential community. So furthermore, it is essential to note that we already have that tower. I understand it's being decommissioned. They've got vacant space there. Put it there. That was there. Communities grew up around that. We grew up with it. This is directly on the road. You'll be driving by, looking up at 160 feet, the size of this building, at a tower, where nothing else is maybe 40 feet tall. The billboard, that's 30, 40 feet. You've got power poles 40, 50 feet. That is it. So in conclusion, I would just like to say that there are much better sites fit to house this 160-foot pole. Ours is not it. A 6-foot fence, we appreciate you changing it from aluminum to PVC, but how would that help us the additional 154 feet up? I don't know. West Chase will not see this. West Chase is about a mile away. They are moving this from West Chase to our community. Of course, they have no objection. They won't see it. It's a mile and a half down the road. So I would urge you to reconsider the location of this pole, as it does affect us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. If you could please sign in. Next, please. Good morning, sir.
Frank Fala, 8819 Royal Enclave Boulevard in Tampa. I firmly, highly object to this this tower. I'm a 20-year original resident of the community. Just like stated before, this community, that old tower has been there since the start of our construction. You know, buying in that community, didn't affect me because, you know, having a tower in that area did not affect me at all. But this tower, as you pull out of the neighborhood, you will directly, and I can see it directly from my driveway, the proposed tower. There's too many waivers that are being involved with this, the setback waivers. I don't agree with that. Why are we giving waivers on setback? That shouldn't even be, you know, considered in that matter. And the camouflage waiver, I mean, why isn't that, that's another thing. Why are they allowed, you know, to have a camouflage waiver when we're gonna, there's houses that are gonna be directly seen in this particular proposed tower. The new towers have not been tested since 1996 is the last FCC guideline for these particular towers. Just like Marcus had said, 6-foot fence does not, you know, do anything as far as that's concerned, as far as camouflaging. And as far as the applicant stated, this is not a heavily commercial area. This is a heavily residential area. So that was stated incorrectly 100% and a lie. As far as there is houses directly behind the particular site, I mean, literally within 20, 30 feet of the actual proposed site. The commercial site right next to it, the ProCare Auto, I talked to one of the owners there on Friday. he was not aware of this. He did not get proper notice with this particular site that's going to be bordering his business property line. There was a 27-acre big cat rescue property that was just sold. That property is more accessible to this, that would not be seen from Sheldon Road, because like we had stated before, you will see this as you're driving down Sheldon. The old tower that's being decommissioned, you cannot see it from Sheldon Road. So as far as property values in the area, the Citrus Park and West Chase area, this will cause issues aesthetically. And we have we did an online, for the record, 156 as of this morning have signed in opposition.
There's an overhead right next to you. You could put that face down or face up? So I think it is. Hang on just one second. We'll send in help. And you can show that and then submit it into the record if you'd like. There you go.
And that was within 72 hours, that was generated, 156 signatures, verifiable that they are against this cell phone tower. We do not want this cell phone tower. We never would ask for it. We were never even notified until just recently. So this was a very shock and gave us very little time to prepare to even, to talk about this even further. Like I said, this is just, the requirements for a modern tower, there's this, like I said, there's waivers, and then the camouflage, there's different things that have not been met in this particular stance. And like I said, this is a residential area, not a commercial area. So that needs to be known. That's the most specific. And like I said, I can see this directly. The proposed tower will be seen directly from my driveway, as of everybody else. There's plenty of kids in the neighborhood. We don't know the exact ramifications future down the line. We don't know anything about, as far as health-wise, but, as far as everything else, this is something that the community does not want and heavily opposed, 100%. And we ask you, please, to reconsider, to deny this application and have it put somewhere else. They have the funds. These are big corporations. We are small guys. We're families. We're not large corporations that are worth billions with these cell phone towers that are behind these type of things being constructed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you want to submit that into the record when you sign in. Next, please. And while she's coming up, because we've had a couple mentions of notice and perhaps inappropriate notice, Ms. Mason, if you could double check the notice while she's speaking and let me know if it's in order. Good morning.
Good morning. Tanya Padilla, 8837 Cameron Crest Drive, 33626. I live at the Enclave community. This tower is literally at our front step, and it will affect us. The tower will be in front of the school bus stop, which is at the entrance of our community. You saw the picture of our beautiful community at this point. This is where our children and parents gather twice a day before and after school. We have two one-story small businesses across the street, as well as the community that is literally adjacent to the tower. There is no tree line, and it will be very close to us. It will be an eyesore, for sure. The proposed tower does not meet the requirements. Please do not grant the waivers. Every single requirement will make a difference to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you could please sign in. All right. No one else in opposition, is that correct? All right, seeing no one. Ms. Marshall, anything else you'd like to add?
Nothing further in regards to the case. Looking at the notice, all of the required property owners within the 300 feet were noticed. Each page was stamped by the post office that they were noticed.
So the adjacent property owner notice is in order?
Correct. It may be, there may be multiple businesses, and they're required to notice the property owner, not every business owner.
All right, thank you. And just as a comment, if there is an issue with co-location based on different camouflaging types, that may be a bigger issue more than this case, but that may be something to look at if people are not able to co-locate and therefore discouraging camouflaging.
Sure.
So, understood. All right. So we'll go back to the applicant who has 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you. I just want to go back to a couple of images here. There is competent substantial evidence in the form of a staff report from Development Services and the Planning Commission that the location of this tower is commercial from a zoning perspective and from an actual use on the ground. You can see that from this image, as well as images of Sheldon. This is a 4-lane divided county road. So this is a commercial area. Across the street is residential, and there is residential to the east. I also want to point out that, yes, you can see the existing tower from Sheldon. This is the entrance to the neighborhood across the street. You can see the existing tower here.
Is that the enclave?
Yes, that is.
Thank you.
This is, from every perspective, a better site than a site that's surrounded by residential property. This is the existing site. It's a tower that is, again, well under 100% of its height from dozens of homes. And yes, these homes grew up around the tower. It's absolutely not camouflaged and dominates the view of much of the neighborhood. So from a compatibility perspective, this is not introducing something that is unlike what's already there, and where it's going is much more in line with the kinds of more intense, utilitarian, if you will, uses up and down this segment of Sheldon.
Can you answer the question posed by the opposition as to why the new tower can't be built on the existing site?
Yes. This does happen. I'm not a part of the litigation, but there is a dispute with the landowner of that tower site. So again, they pretty much never own these sites. They lease areas to put the towers. That litigation, Crown Castle is not actually looking to say, hey, let's go through the process of taking this tower down and finding another site. That's not the ideal thing to do. But if this litigation goes in a certain way, that tower will have to come down. And when it does, there needs to be a replacement to continue covering this area. So you saw in the coverage maps, this covers these communities. It reaches all the way up to the Citrus Park Mall, as you can see in these coverage maps. So this is not an insignificant tower. And I understand that with this replacement relocation site, there will be some people who can see it better than they can see the existing tower. The same is true for the tower that currently exists. Most people can see it. Some can see it better than others. Some can see it less. That will be the case with this tower. But that is not, in the code, a reason. The height is what it is, and it's permitted to be up to 200 feet under the modern code. That is not a reason to disallow it just because it can be seen. That is, unfortunately, the very nature of a tower, but they are everywhere. If you drive up and down Dale Mabry, if you drive up and down Sheldon, you see the example here. This tower here is on Sheldon, up here near the mall and these other residential communities. Towers have to be located where people need to use them. And so this site is an ideal location because it's in a zoned commercial area along a major thoroughfare, and that gives it the proximity to the residential communities that will utilize this tower without being in that community from a zoning perspective. I understand that it can be seen. There is really no way to avoid that. You do, again, have competent substantial evidence of all of this. You have the applicant's own evidence in the record. You have the county's third-party consultant who did review other locations where it could go and found that adding this tower here is the way to address the gap in coverage that would result without it. You have the staff report, evidence of the compatibility, and evidence of the support for the waivers. You did not hear competent substantial evidence from planning experts about why it wouldn't be compatible. And again, you cannot, under FCC law or under federal law, you cannot consider the conjecture of RF emissions because it will meet the safety standards, and it is well enough away. With that, I respectfully request your approval, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. All right, then with that, we will close special use CFW 25-0217 and go to the last case.
Last item is item I4, special use 250219. The applicant is Aston Strawberry Property Management, LLC. The request is a special use for farm worker housing. Sam Ball will provide staff findings after presentation by the applicant.
All right.
Ma'am, we can't talk anymore?
No, the case is closed. Thank you, sir. Good morning. Sir.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Officer. Chris McNeil, 15957 North Florida Avenue with McNeil Engineering on behalf of the applicant. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. This is one of our beloved farms here in Hillsborough County that is in need of some additional farm worker housing. And if I can go to the slides there, they focus mainly on strawberry, blueberry, watermelon farms. This is located down towards Waimama. This is the 1 mile radius around the site, and as you can see there's a 530-acre farm that is their farm right next to this, as well as their warehouse that's just to the north of the existing farm worker housing. And their operation is they need the additional housing. So this special use was previously permitted some years ago for 50 units. The density allows up to 174 units on this parcel. It's a pretty large parcel here, 30-ish acres for where the warehouse and the housing is included. But we're only asking for 120 combined, so 50 plus 70. The property is located in the urban service area, and again, just right on the edge of it. So there's the future land use line is actually running through diagonally through this area. You can kind of see it lightly there in the middle of the page. So you have right on the urban and rural line. Available for any questions, but we just really appreciate your consideration on this over 100-acre family farm here. Well, I should mention one other thing as far as transportation-wise. All the connections are internal for the farm. They comply with all the H2A, transportation, et cetera, issues. So the workers are bused back and forth between the farm. They have to take them to the doctor or to retail, if there's a request. So they take care of them very well. So this is a very low trip generator, even though there's no real farm worker housing in the land use code, ITE land use code I'm talking about, to justify that. So that's just one thing I wanted to point out. So anyway, with that, if you have any questions, here it is.
No questions. I appreciate your time.
Yes.
Please sign in. Development Services. Good morning.
Good morning. Sam Ball with Hillsborough County Development Services. The applicant is requesting special use approval to increase the number of approved farm worker housing dwellings from 150 to 120 units on a property located within a suburban future land use district in accordance with LDC Section 61139G, which requires that all farm worker housing in the suburban future land use plan category to be reviewed through the special use process. The farm worker housing compound is located about 9/10 of a mile east of 301 and 19th Avenue Northeast and covers approximately 25.7 acres. Staff finds that the proposed development plan would allow the farm worker housing expansion to comply with the requirements of the Land Development Code. The farm worker housing site has internal driveways that provide direct access to the 535-acre farm and warehouse facility that the farm worker housing occupants would serve. Staff also finds that the development plan adequately mitigates the impacts of the requested farm worker housing expansion and would be compatible with the zoning and development pattern in the area, as well as the mixture of residential uses in the area. Based on these considerations, staff finds the application approvable subject to conditions. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions.
I did receive your revised staff report. If you could just let me know the reason for the revision.
The school board report, but right before the reports were due, we found out that there was a school board evaluation needed to be conducted, and we decided to keep it on the agenda, and then in the event that the report came back as, where they couldn't meet the adequate services, then we would have probably continued the application.
And what was the school board's finding?
The service was adequate. I guess the local, in the report, there were, in the Raj report, I want to say elementary was adequate, but then there was additional capacity within the area.
Is that a report in optics? Because I don't see it here.
It is in optics.
Okay.
So right. So I believe it was elementary was adequate, and there was adequate capacity in other schools in the area, so that they were allowed to. So there was no objection.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Planning Commission.
Alexis Myers, Planning Commission. Staff, the subject properties located in the Waimama Village Residential 2 and Residential 4 future land use categories. It is located in the urban service area within the limits of the South Shore area wide systems and Waimama Village community plans. The proposed special use meets the intent of future land use element policy 1.4 on compatibility and objective 16 on neighborhood protection. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff find the proposed special use consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the proposed conditions by the Development Services Department.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support?
Nobody online.
Good morning. No one online?
Nobody is online. No,
All right. Thank you so much. And I'll have to call for anyone who would like to speak in opposition. Seeing no one, Ms. Marshall, anything else?
Nothing further.
All right, Mr. McNeil, anything else? All right, then with that, we'll close special use FWH 25-0219 and adjourn the hearing. Thank you all for your time and testimony.